Hi guys, it's Ms. Ravel, and today we're going to be going over adding and subtracting polynomials and something useful for you guys if you're going to be taking notes are different color pens. They're going to help you out, or pencils or crayons or whatever you have. All right, let's get started. So a couple well, the only vocabulary word, the big one we have, is like terms. And what does it mean to have a like term? So like terms have the same variable part. They have the same variable raised to the same power, which is the exponent, so they have the same exponent, and they can have different coefficients. Okay, so let's go into our first example. We have 6x and 4x. They have the same variable, which is x, it's right here, and they have the same exponent, which is 1. So if you guys can see it, same variable, they both have x's, they both have the same exponent. There's the ghost one there. So those are like terms. Okay, second example, 8y squared and 10y squared. Again, the same variable, which is y. The letter y, not why are we doing this. And the same exponent, 2. So those would be considered like terms. And then our last one, which is going to get a little bit more complicated. We have our variables, which are a and b. They're the same. And they're also raised to the same power. So the a's in both of this are raised to 4. The b's are raised to 9. So you have the same variables and the same exponents. So these are like terms. If one of these were to change, it would not be a like term. And as you guys saw, that the coefficients in all of these, make my coefficients blue, didn't matter. Okay, so those don't matter. You can change those up as much as you want. So you can only combine when they are like terms. So what does that mean? Okay, let's look at this example. This means I have 6x plus 4x. And in that, I'm going to add or subtract. In this case, I'm going to add my coefficients. Remember, these are your coefficients right here. They're the number in front of your variable. In this case, it's 6 and 4. I'm going to add them together. That gives me 10. My variable is going to stay the same. So I don't do anything with this other than just bring it over and identify that it's there. This is very different than when you multiply or divide. So make sure your variable stays the same. Second example, 8y squared minus 10y squared. Okay, the only thing I'm interested in is, do I have the same variable? Y, yes. Do I have the same exponents? Squared, squared, yes. So then the only thing I actually need to do is deal with my coefficients. And in this case, it's 8 and negative 10, which gets me negative 2. And my variable stays the same, y squared. Sorry, just move my computer. Last one. We have negative 3, a to the 4th, b to the 9th. Okay, again, I'm just using the same examples we had up here. And 12, a to the 4th, b to the 9th. My variables are going to stay the same. I'm going to have a to the 4th, b to the 9th. And the only thing that I need to deal with is this negative 3 and that positive 12, which is going to give me a positive 9. So my answer is going to be 9, a to the 4th, b to the 9th. Okay, so you have to have like terms to combine, and then you can add or subtract them. Again, the only thing that can be different are the coefficients. The variables and the exponent have to be the same. All right, so let's continue. Wrong page. Okay, so the exponents are not going to change when you're adding and subtracting. Okay, make sure that's something that you kind of get into your head. The exponents do not change when you're adding and subtracting. So when I have this example, I like to do these in different colors when I'm combining like terms. I have 3x and 4x. Those are my like terms. This guy right here, I'm going to circle him. I have nothing else to combine him with. So based on the rules, my exponent stays the same. I'm going to get 7x plus 2y. And that is your answer. That's it. That's as much as I can simplify. I can't do anything else. Let's look at the second one. I have a 3x squared, I have a 2y, and I have a 4x. I can't combine anything on this problem because this one is an x squared, this one's a y, and this one is an x. And remember my rules, I need the same variable and the same exponent. So this problem right here is completely simplified. I can't do anything with this problem. I can't combine anything. This is what the answer is going to look like. Your answer will just stay 3x squared plus 4x plus 2y. And if you already watched Mr. David's video, which was the one you should have watched before this one on standard form and leading coefficients and how to write things by ascending and descending order, there you go. Okay, but again, because we're adding, it doesn't really matter which way you write them because they're going to come out either way. All right, adding polynomials. I'm going to show you guys a couple ways to go about this, and it just depends on what you're comfortable with and what's easier for you. So when I see something like this and I'm adding, I know these parentheses can just go away. So I'm just going to rewrite this as 3x plus 4 plus 6x minus 1. Nothing changes. There's nothing here for me to distribute. I mean, technically it's just like a positive 1 right there, but nothing, it's still the same, okay? And then I'm going to take my 2 different color pens and I'm going to figure out what I can combine. Well, I can combine the 3x and I can combine the 6x. I can also combine the positive 4 and the negative 1. So again, my exponents are going to stay the same. I'm just dealing with my coefficients. That gives me 9x, 3x plus 6x. And then I have 4 minus 1, which is 3. So my answer is 9x plus 3. Okay, this is doing it horizontally. You can also line it up vertically. So just make sure you line up everything appropriately. Your x's under your x's, your x squareds if you had x squareds, and then these numbers off on their end. Just make sure that you guys line it all up correctly and you can do it vertically. 4 minus 1 is 3. 3x plus 6x is 9x, and there's my answer. So as long as you're lining them up, it should not be a problem. And this is always easier when you're adding. Okay, adding, this is always easier to do it this way because there's less rules when you're adding. All right, let's try another couple of examples. All right, up here I'm adding. I'm just going to break them all apart. So I'm going to have 2 plus 4x cubed plus 9x to the 4th minus 3 plus 5x cubed. I am going to figure out what I can combine. So I've got this 9x to the 4th, and I'm going to put a green circle around him. And there's nothing else I can combine him with because I have other things that have the same variable, but these guys have different exponents, so that doesn't work. And I'm going to put a pink rectangle around my 5 or my x cubes, things that are with my x cubed, and I have 2 of them. I have these guys right here. And then I'm just going to put a blue line underneath everything else that I have like that. And then I can see what I need. And if I'm going to write it with my highest variable first, then I will have, starting here, 9x to the 4th. I have 4x cubed and positive 5x cubed, so that is 9x cubed. And then I just have a positive 2 and a negative 3, which get me a negative 1. Right. And if you wanted to write that out vertically, go ahead. I would do it like this. We have 5x cubed, and then I just have a negative 3 somewhere down there. If you had an x squared or an x, they would go in here. And then down below, I've got a 2 and a 4x cubed. And those are both positive. So you could line it up vertically. 9x to the 4th plus 9x cubed minus 1. Okay, either way is fine. And let's try one more. This one you have 3 different types. So again, in adding, I don't need to worry about distributing or doing anything. I can just put it all out there. So I'm going to have 4y squared plus 7 plus 9y squared minus 5 minus y to the 4th plus 3y to the fourth minus 6. I just dropped all my parentheses because it doesn't matter which way I add all these up. And let's see what I got here. I've got a 3y to the fourth, a positive 3y to the fourth. Ooh, and right here I have a negative y to the fourth. And let's see, I've got a positive 9y squared, and I've got a positive 4y squared. And then I've got a 7, a negative 5, and a negative 6. So those are the things I combine. So let's start with our biggest exponent, which is to the fourth power. I've got 3y to the fourth power and negative y to the fourth power. And remember, there is a 1 there. So that's going to give me 2y to the fourth power. So I have 3 minus 1. Combining my other ones, I have 9y squared and 4y squared, which is going to give me 13y squared. Remember, you do nothing with your exponents and your variables. They stay the same throughout. And then I've got my 7, my negative 5, and my negative 6. So 7 minus 5 is a positive 2. And then you've got minus 6, which will get me a negative 4. And there is your answer. And again, if you wanted to set this up vertically, just line them all up. Okay. So let's get into subtraction. Subtraction, careful with your negatives, okay? And you have to make sure that you distribute your negatives. And let me show you what I mean when we're doing subtraction here. So here's this guy right here. When I have a negative here, this negative, it's kind of like a negative 1 right there. Let me put that in a different color. That's a negative 1 right there. So I need to make sure I distribute that negative 1 to each of these. So everything in here, the sign is going to change. Nothing changes here. But anytime I'm subtracting, I'm going to need to distribute that negative. So let's do that. This guy here stays the same. That's 4n squared plus 5. And let's go ahead and distribute our negative 1. I have negative 1 times a negative 2n squared, which is going to give me a positive 2n squared. I'm going to distribute the negative 1 here to the positive 2n. That's going to give me a negative 2n. And then I'm going to distribute my negative 1 and multiply it times a negative 4, which is going to give me a positive 4. Right. Once you do that, we are right back where we started with just combine your like terms. So what are my like terms? I've got a 4n squared and a positive 2n squared. I've got a negative 2n here by itself, and then I've got a positive 5 and a positive 4. So combine your like terms and you're good to go. That is 6n squared minus 2n plus 9. Okay, there's your answer. I know you guys are probably looking at this, you're like, oh, this is so easy, I don't have to do anything. I think that this in isolation is very easy. When this becomes confusing is when you start to multiply and then subtract and multiply and then add or do different things, because then your exponents will change. So it's very important when you're here, okay, to take your time, ask what operation am I doing? Am I being asked to add, subtract, multiply, divide? What am I being asked to do? Okay, and remember that when you are adding and subtracting, your variables and exponents don't change. You're just bringing them down into the next group. You're only dealing with the coefficients in front. Okay, let's try a few more examples here. Okay. So I have this negative here, which means I need to distribute that negative to all of those. All right, so let's do that. I'm going to leave all of these the same. These guys are good because there's no negative out in front of here. And I have p squared plus p plus 3. And when I distribute that, I get a positive 4p squared plus p minus 3. And again, once I'm here, just color it up. here we go. I've got 1p squared, 4p squared. I've got a positive p and a positive p. And then I've got a positive 3 and a negative 3. So combine your like terms. I have 4, 5. So 4 here plus 1 here. That gets me 5p squared. I've got these guys here. That is 2p. And then I've got 3 minus 3, which is 0. So I don't even need to write the 0 there. There's your answer. Okay. And your last example. Again, you're subtracting, so distribute your negative. And this guy's going to be the same, 4m squared minus m plus 2, right, plus 3m squared minus 10m minus 4. Again, I'm distributing to each. I have 4m squared and 3m squared. I have negative m, negative 10m, and I've got positive 2 and negative 4. Okay. I've got 7m squared, and I've got a negative 10 and a negative 1, which gives me negative 11m, and a positive 2 and a negative 4, which gives me negative 2. So there's your answer for those. Okay, so these are just the basics, adding and subtracting. Your next videos are going to be 3 different methods on how to multiply polynomials. Okay, and if you wanted extra practice problems for adding and subtracting, I'm pretty sure everybody has an Algebra 1 workbook. And on page 208, you can do problems 13 through 20. And if you don't have a workbook, okay, here are the problems. And these are, again, on page, well, it'd be nice if you could see that. I'll write it up here. These are on page 208 in your workbook. I will also put this up in the resource folder so you guys have extra problems if you want them. But again, these are just adding and subtracting. I think you guys will do great on this part, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye. Have a good day.